Well, very good. Finally, the new season of Baki dropped on Netflix, which adapts the prologue and the first major arc of the Baki manga, Son of Ogre. Focused. You know, the domestic violence between Baki and his father? And before anything else, I want to highlight how this is something we've really been waiting for months and months, patiently and with a ton of hype. In a little while, Puff will be over. As for me, I binge-watched these 12 episodes in a single free morning I had. And the first thing I thought about was this: how we're able to wait even years for something that's literally going to last us just a little while. As long as it's worth it, it's fine. If not, we just have to deal with it. Honestly, there aren't many other options. First of all, I want to clarify that I'll try to keep this video free of manga spoilers. I apologize if I accidentally let any slip through, even though most of us have read the manga. But anyway, a warning is a warning. Your hero dies. Just kidding, just kidding, just kidding. Oh, I can't take— no, nothing serious. Baki has never been the title that Netflix wanted to give to this season. I don't know why they removed the subtitle Son of Ogre. I think it sounds super epic. But anyway, maybe it's a commercial or licensing issue, or who knows. I don't work at Netflix. I'm just the only Baki fan on the face of the earth. Here's my plan. I'll begin by sharing my overall thoughts on Netflix's adaptation to keep the video structured. Then I'll point out what I consider to be its strong points, and finally, the ones I consider negative. I'll say up front that my issues are more with the plot of the adapted arcs than with the anime itself. But anyway, we can talk a little about everything. In my opinion, these 12 episodes have been more than good. You can tell that Baki is doing well commercially. Otherwise, there's no way Netflix would be willing to release so many seasons. Because look, with Kengan Ashura, it wasn't the biggest hit or most famous anime, but it still had a dedicated audience and many fans. And even so, it's pretty unlikely that we'll see more Kengan animated content in the short term. On the other hand, Baki is doing pretty well. I'm happier than Yujiro in Vietnam telling the United States Army, "All of you against me, alone." I would also say it's noticeable that they're putting more and more care into the animation. I watched the Convict Saga a long time ago, basically when it was first released. This season has had more quality, a higher level, and a bigger budget than previous ones. That makes sense. The Convict season was a market test, but this one is apparently a real investment. These details need discussion. It could always be better. I'm not saying it was perfect. Its animation quality isn't nearly as high as anime like Fate Stay Night Heaven's Feel. It doesn't match Kimetsu no Yaiba, Jujutsu Kaisen, or Shingeki no Kyojin. But is it still good enough for this type of manga? Yes, I think Netflix falls short. Since the characters are already absurdly muscular in the manga, Netflix makes them even more muscular. For example, Jack Hanma, who in the manga, at this point he's a huge, super muscular monster. In the anime, he looks like a polar bear in a sweater and pants. But I'm just nitpicking here, splitting hairs. If I only say positive things, I'll sound more like a Netflix ad than someone sharing my opinion. Baki's physique. Wow, what an incredible body he has. If I had to pick the most aesthetic physique, it would definitely be Baki's. I'm so jealous of that little bastard. Let's move on to the positive aspects this animated season has had. There's definitely something interesting to discuss here, and I clearly see the strong points. It really benefited this part of the story. Let me explain. You may hate me for what I'm about to say, but it's just my opinion, and I can't change it. The first thing I want to highlight is the beginning of this manga. You all know it. The thing about the boy, the elephant, the mantis, this or that. In the anime, it was more enjoyable and tolerable than the manga, which I found unbearable and boring. This is essentially just the prologue. And you might say, but man, that's super short. In the manga, it goes by quickly. And yeah, okay, but it's just, It was tough to stay focused during this part, even though it was brief, since I wanted to see fighters, the story, and familiar faces. Not some bratty kid who wants to challenge Baki with a knife and an imaginary mantis. Nobody's asking for the introduction to be Jesus Christ, even though it was in previous Baki mangas. But it's not that important, and it doesn't last long. What's important here is that in the anime, it was more entertaining, in my opinion, than something very similar. Inside the prison, are you going to kill me? Che Guevara seems boring to me. I don't care about him, and his background lacks charisma. He has no interesting appeal except as a parody of a historical figure. He sold empty promises regardless of who it bothered. He couldn't match Baki or Oliva, even with 1,000 years of training, that's all. I dislike the character. I wanted to see Baki and Biscuit Oliva in action. Cha didn't matter to me at all. Anyway, if you like the character, that's fine. He's not cringe or anything, but that's just how I feel. Also, everything before Che is defeated by Oliva is kind of meh, laughing. The plot constantly hypes Che, suggesting he's equal to Baki and Oliva. Even the government sees him as a threat like Yujiro or Oliva. Because of the cameras and all that, although this would be more because of his actions against the government rather than his strength. Still, the implication was clear, and the only notable antagonists or enemies were those three idiots. The ones I think we can all agree were a total joke, really. A trio of clowns. God Itagaki, please don't even consider for a moment doing anything again with this trio of cringe lords. So, was the fight between Oliva and Che pointless? Oliva's punch on Che was like a kitten facing a rhinoceros. He sent him to Onasakai, literally put him to sleep while Che fantasized about victory. That's probably the closest to being sent to Onasakai. Realistically, just like with the prologue, the fight to grab the handkerchief is in the manga. It also felt endless to me, but here it felt lighter. So that's great. The arc becomes extremely intense once Che is out and only Oliva and Baki remain, like an epic final battle. I also want to mention that I was surprised by how good a character María, Oliva's girlfriend, is. Back in the day, I hardly noticed her in the manga since I assumed she was just a joke or meme character by Itagaki. But no, the woman has a reason for being in that state. Oliva is a gentleman like no other these days, who loves María for who she is, not for what she is or for her looks. And María? Behind her cold, tough exterior, she hides a kind person who empathizes with Oliva and others. Definitely María, greater than Kozue, yesterday, today, tomorrow, and forever. The truth is, I ended up really liking her. As for Oliva and Baki, well, they're awesome, we all know that. Oliva only has one flaw, and that's that he needs to be nerfed and terribly humiliated, whenever the script needs it. But that's for another video. Now, the negative points. I don't want to sound like a fanboy. I think Netflix has done a good job with this production given its resources. My main problem isn't even with the adaptation itself, but with the arc itself, which is pretty boring until almost the end. Most iconic scenes from this arc, like the famous Baki and Oliva meme, are well adapted. There's hardly anything missing. Now I see a much better, more faithful manga adaptation than in previous seasons. They even had the guts to let Oliva piss epically in Baki's face. So yeah, that would be all. Now we just have to wait for them to take the pickle out of the freezer and let the madness begin. I'm glad that this franchise keeps progressing properly and that we constantly have fresh content. And as I've mentioned a lot in my streams lately, I'm not hyped about the anime right now, but about certain events that are happening right now in the manga. If you're up to date, do you know who or what I mean? That's all for now. See you in the next videos. Since there's still a lot more to talk about regarding Baki, see you. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe and follow me on Twitter and Twitch, where I stream nearly every day. Remember to follow my secondary channel, Biels, where I post anime reaction and manga reading videos that I've watched or read live. Thank you very much, and see you next time.